1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
1, 1 was a racehorse, 2, 2 was 1, 2. 1, 1, 1, 1 race, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2.
See chameleon lying there in the sun, all things to everyone, 1, 1 away.
I thought, but the thought I thought wasn't the thought I thought I thought. If the thought I thought was the thought I thought, I wouldn't have thought so much. The deranged cat really wanted to contribute. All right, I think levels are looking all right.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, except for that cable that keeps on clunking. I was going to get one this week.
And then other things happened.
Other things did happen.
But we'll get into that.
We will.
Colin had a problem and a microphone to spare. Thomas took it up and so the podcast went to air. For weeks and months they trolled through every single DVD. They've unwrapped all the ones they can and now they're cellulose free. Now they're cellulose free.
Hello dear listener and welcome to Cellulose Free. My name is Colin and with me as always is my fellow film watcher, compadre and son, Thomas.
Hi, hello.
What have you been up to?
Been preparing for various elections. I know they're both still, at least a month out, but, I've got 3 people to educate.
I'm hoping that you've spent a couple of days going around the neighbourhood pulling down all of the illegal election signs.
What, the ones that were already up?
Yes.
More than 8 weeks early.
That's right. That are now even more.
Yeah, the government has the state government, I should say, has preemptively moved the periodic legislative council elections out of reach of any possible federal election date.
Unless the federal government declares things to have been disrupted so much due to acts of God that the federal election has to be delayed as well.
No. I'm expecting that they'll call it, as this is going out, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Try to head off as much of Senate estimates as they can.
Oh, look, I know we sometimes get bogged down into local politics and we really should limit that a lot. But this particular election has been interesting in that the current government has managed to, due to all sorts of things, sneak in another budget. Yeah. And has snuck in some things in said budget that are upsetting the opposition quite a bit and aren't going to support it. But they then have to state that they will be cancelling tax cuts that are proposed in this budget. Actually, did it get signed off today?
I think it has been passed through,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, my impression was that the budget has been passed, and so the opposition would have to say, if we are elected, we'll reverse those tax cuts to large swathes of people. And
large swathes of people who aren't earning that much in the first place.
Yeah. It's an interesting move, and the opposition has certainly stated that this particular budget was political.
The budget right before the election.
Yeah, political.
Oh.
Anyway, so that's been keeping you busy then.
Yeah. I've made maps.
Maps.
Yeah.
Oh, of the different electoral areas because yes.
Did you know that here in Pembroke, I'm going really, really deep here into Legislative Council. Here in Pembroke, we were projected to be about 6% below the average elector count 5 years into this particular redistribution cycle. And no, we were well over 10% below the average. So
we've got smaller.
Yeah. We this particular electorate has gotten smaller compared to the state average.
Huh.
And it's now somewhere around 14 or 15% below the average.
Right. There's going to have to be a bit of a redistribution, I think.
Yeah, that's due sometime this year or next.
Fortunately, just for a little bit of clarification there doesn't tend to be, due to the fact that such boundaries are drawn up by an independent body, there doesn't tend to be a great deal of gerrymandering going on there.
What's going to happen is that we're going to push more into Gilston Bay and Howrah.
Yeah.
Which are the only suburbs that are partially covered by...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have, and I don't think I'm blinkered here, I do have a fair degree of confidence in the independence of the Electoral Commission in not making electoral areas advantageous to political parties.
It's sort of interesting looking at the documentation. It's like, so a committee is formed of 3 people who make the initial proposal and then dissolve.
Yep.
And those members then join a bigger tribunal, which is 5 people.
It's interesting manoeuvring, but again, mainly designed to enforce it being an independent body.
Yeah, and then I zoomed out to Franklin, the federal division of Franklin, and it's like, did you know that Franklin is the only federal electoral division which you have to drive through another division in order to connect it up?
I did know that.
Yeah.
It is a bit strange. That being said, the main reason being divisions of electorates having the main city sitting in the middle of... Anyway.
It's very hard to connect it through what is currently Clark without obviously breaking up a community of interest.
Yeah. And it's worked. You occasionally get scuffles from one end of Franklin electorate feeling that they're not represented adequately, and then the other half saying, hey, we're the ones who aren't adequately covered, which suggests that it's actually working fairly well, other than the fact that for many, 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 many years, this electorate has been a very, very safe seat for a particular party, and so one questions whether you're being represented anyway.
Well, it is still surprisingly unified for what is a mix of suburban, rural areas.
Yeah, yep. Funny old electorate.
You would think the rural areas would lean a little further towards the Liberals than they end up doing.
Yeah. That's a capital L Liberal, which is actually Conservative.
Yes.
It's confusing. The Liberal Party, capital L Liberal Party of Australia, certainly did tend to be a little more lowercase liberal than it currently is. It is now more right-leaning and conservative.
And then I zoomed out to Tasmania, which I don't have anything particularly interesting to say about. Had to.
It's a wonderful place.
It is
Thomas.
a wonderful place.
There, I've said something.
I'll give you that, but, I was writing down what the senator makeup was, and it's like, leaving this year, this particular party makeup, leaving 3 years from now, the same party makeup, except that the Jackie Lambie network member is now an independent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, and I suspect you'll have more to say on this, a couple of adventures going on simultaneously.
Indeed.
First of which...
you're going to take wind out of my sails, are you?
First of which being...
You are.
That we're switching internet providers.
Yes, frustrations are plenty, and perhaps in a slightly rash move, but I don't think so. I've got a better deal, and actions of the current service provider, or lack of actions, push me over the edge.
The straw that broke the camel's back was a clearly malfunctioning modem.
Very clearly.
That they wouldn't do anything about.
No.
Until you said that you were leaving.
Yes, and then they, we'll send you a free modem. And, well, I've already verbally signed, and they are sending me a free modem. Thank you very much. And for us, slightly less than we're paying you at the moment, there are certain benefits that we'll be getting that you aren't offering. So that I haven't told Thomas so he's blissfully unaware of.
Yeah, the current modem overheats and then it stops doing internet.
You have one job.
Well, two jobs.
Well, yeah.
To not overheat and to do internet.
Look, I think actually it's trying to fulfill a third job that it was never originally designed. It's expanding beyond its original design and is trying to become a toaster.
Yeah.
So whenever it starts to overheat, we throw a bit of bread on top of it, and that absorbs some of that heat and also creates toast.
It produces half a slice of toast. You sort of have to flip it over.
Yeah. And depending on how overheated it is, you might have to wait for it to overheat again before you can toast the other side.
The good news is that it's sort of a vicious cycle because the crumbs get into it and clog it up and make it overheat even more.
Yeah, so it's getting to a point where you wonder whether the house is going to burn down due to just the modem overheating or the crumbs catching fire.
Yeah.
Or the crumbs and the toast catching fire. So there we are. And so I've had to put on my neurotypical, which I'm not, pants and try to hold conversations on telephones, which is hard at the best of times. But when you've got that call centre in another country delay, as well as language barriers, it's been a bit rough. And to just add to the roughness, while that's been overheating, there are certain other infrastructure parts of the property that have decided to assist in reducing the overheating by soaking everything in water.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
One of the main pipes out the front of our property has sprung a slow leak and is going to require being dug up. Fortunately, it's infrastructure that we are not financially required to deal with. Taswater will come along and dig a stonking great hole and may or may not remove a large plant that is sitting on top of where they suspect the leak is. And then hopefully, I don't know, it's the main hydrant line, so all the fire hydrants are on this pipe. And yeah, so they're going to have some fun and games and require trucks out the front and traffic control and fun times for all.
In other infrastructure letting us down news.
Spotify!
I mean, there's some hubris involved in this one
absolutely.
also.
Look, it was something in the back of our mind. So for some of you may not actually be aware, I'm sure you are, but this podcast is actually a spin-off from another podcast called Still Under Wraps that ran for 89 episodes. And it was originally released on Anchor Podcasts.
Yeah.
That they hosted it, and then Spotify did a buyout of them and took over. And
now it's been through 2 rebrands.
Yeah. So out there in the cloud is 89 episodes of a podcast that is basically the parent of this podcast and ran much along the same lines.
Yep.
Except for one glaring difference.
Yeah.
And that was the decision of some crazy podcast editor. Each episode there was a movie that was talked about. And we, as the podcasters, would do a little intro, much like this. Yeah. And then, except a lot shorter, I have discovered.
Yeah.
And then announce what we're watching. And then instead of a very short little ditty written by Thomas, I would grab a piece of music from the film that we were going to be watching. I know. Big awooga alerts happening. But at that stage, Anchor seemed to be the Wild West.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any filtering happening or auto-detective music and things like that. And so things were fine, and things have been fine for, how long has it been since we...
2019 we started in.
Yeah, 2019, and it went for...
a couple of years.
So it's been almost 5 years that these podcasts have been sitting on there with copyright-restricted music. and nobody has said anything.
Almost none of which we discussed during the podcast.
No. Fairly recently, one of the podcasts that I listened to made mention of the fact that Spotify was going to be cracking down very heavily using AI and auto detect to just plough through the entire catalogue of podcasts that are hosted on Spotify for any piece of music that is owned by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular podcast, basically, he earns his living discussing audio and sound and music and oral spaces and things like that. And he did a full podcast or a video. I can't remember where I heard him talking about it, but basically saying that he's feeling very, very threatened. And I instantly thought, okay, our number's probably up as far as Still Under Wraps is concerned. And Friday evening, I get an email saying, you have 40 podcast episodes that have music recognised as being copyright owned, and you will need to review these to state whether A, you have permission, or B, it is, and lists a restricted list of reasons why you could possibly argue why you're using it, or you're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And you've got 8 days to do that before we automatically remove those 40 episodes. So, fortunately, I am a bit of a hoarder, and I backed up every single episode's edit. Not just the final product, but the whole workspace for each episode. So it was fairly easy for 90% of those 40 episodes for me, and I say easy, it was very time consuming, but the way that I edited and continue to do is that I use a particular line in my edit suite for just music. And so I could load up each episode, find the piece of music, delete it, and slot in a little ditty that Thomas provided, and then manually move everything over and bunch it all up so that it all made sense again, except for the times where I would make mention of, I might just put this piece of music in this spot. And so worked around that a bit. So for the last, what was it, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it took to get through those 40 episodes. That being said, there's still 49 episodes that I know are quite likely to have pieces of music, and so I've started chugging away on those. I can understand the ones that have been missed. Sometimes I used the audio of a trailer to the film that we watched, and so their auto-detect wouldn't necessarily pick that up. But I'm just clearing everything out to standardise everything.
Which will make me finally putting everything up on YouTube easier.
Yeah, guess what? Thomas is going to be putting up Still Under Wraps onto YouTube.
I know I've said it many times before, but this time it might actually happen.
Well, this has always been in the back of our minds. YouTube does automatically detect such things. And so it makes sense now that, hey, we're forced to remove the music. So as far as editing, removing that, squishing it up, but then I'd have to regenerate the file. So it probably, if I was being streamlined, which I wasn't, it would take about 10 minutes per episode if I was really, really streamlined. The big problem was that in finding the piece and working out, look, do I need to trim what was said before and after, I get caught up in listening to things and, I stumbled upon the episode where Thomas said turn to side B for the first time, and there was a whole bit of conversation about that and, all sorts of things that I'd completely forgotten about that I'd suddenly find myself 20 minutes later on the same episode because I'd been listening to bits of it and, what did I think of that? That was the big frustration. The number of films that, did we actually watch that? and B, what did we actually think about it? So it took way longer than somebody whose neural makeup would be able to just race through it. No, there were squirrels all the way down.
And then loading everything into the back end, discover that there's a required field that hadn't been filled in that had popped up during the transition.
Yeah, when it switched from Anchor to Spotify introduced a field that then wouldn't allow the episodes that I'd edited to be republished.
Yeah.
And no amount of searching found it.
No.
But for some reason I thought, I wonder if it's being stopped by something else, and so looked it.
And then all of those episodes had the wrong dates on them, and so luckily I still had a backup of the old RSS feed, and so I could go through and correct them. It was interesting seeing the lateness of some of the episodes going up. I think there were a couple that were next day, but like actually having gone to sleep next day. But I think I saw 2:48 a.m.
Yep.
At some point. I had to do the conversion in my head because, of course, it was all in UTC.
Yeah, so with Still Under Wraps, we would record at basically the same time as we record this.
Yeah.
These days we record and then I might upload the audio into the computer and just do a quick audio clean and then leave it till tomorrow to edit. Well, I used to do everything straight after recording, and most times it was well after midnight.
Yeah.
It was the way my brain was working then, so yeah.
Fixing the dates was a right pain because the
here he goes. He's complaining about having to fix it. It took for the 40 episodes that he had to fix, what, a couple of hours? And here I was editing for 3 days.
Oh, I know.
Well, whinger.
This is a complaint about interface design. The date input, first of all, can't type into it. You have to use a calendar to input. You can't select a month out of a list or anything. No, you have to click through each individual month going back to 5-6 years ago. And it has to animate every time. About a quarter of a second for each month, which, you'd think wouldn't be so bad. But when you're looking on the order of 60 or 70 months that you're going back, that's 15, 16 seconds every time.
I'd better be careful with that
solid
audio
clicking.
because I might get copyright struck for the sad music.
So, while what I was doing didn't take particularly long, the productivity wasn't very high. And eventually I just got an auto clicker to click through the right number of times.
My main productivity restriction is that each episode took about 5 minutes to re-render.
Yeah.
And I couldn't start on the next episode until that had completed rendering. So that was my frustration. Speaking of frustrations, the fact that I've spent 3 days dealing with podcasts is that I am dreading editing this podcast, and we are now up to almost 28 minutes of waffle.
Yeah.
So
a lot happened to us this week.
Yeah. So, look, I think, without any further ado, because I'm running out of breath as well, is that we should actually watch a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, let's...
What are we watching this week, Thomas?
We are watching a very, very new film.
It's hot off the press. I don't think the celluloid has dried. This is celluloid, not cellulose, except I think it was possibly digitally recorded. I'm waffling again. What are we watching today?
We are watching The Electric State, which according to Netflix is number 4 in movies today.
And probably their biggest movie, money-wise, that they've made, I believe. It's cost them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there is some debate as to whether that was money well spent. I guess we'll find out soon. Thomas, would you quickly read us a plot synopsis?
After a war between humans and machines, robots lost their freedom, people lost themselves in tech, and Michelle lost everyone she loved. Or did she?
Bum, bum, bum. We're going to wind up the Netflix machine. We're going to watch this, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. So there will be no flipping and turning to side B. We're just going to watch it and catch you on the flip side.
Turn to side B.
You're just as disobedient as you were doing Still Under Wraps. You mongrel.
It's been, 5-6 years since I started doing it. You'd think you'd learn.
Mongrel, mongrel, mongrel. So what did you think?
Sure is another allegory for slavery and racism, isn't it? Specifically using robots.
Yep.
Which, I have to reach back a bit, but it's not a new concept.
No, it's not.
And it's fine. It's certainly steeped in the aesthetic of Starnhag. Whether it really gets the point is another thing.
Yeah, I am less familiar with the Electric State and more familiar with Tales from the Loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether you've seen the TV series that was done.
I've seen a bit of the TV series.
Yeah, I certainly felt like I was in Starnhag's world a lot more in the TV series than I was in this.
Mm-hmm.
This felt very Hollywoodified, for want of a better word, far more than the TV series did. I felt comfortable in the TV series world and familiar, whereas this, it was, I don't know. You've got real orange juice, and then you've got orange cordial. Orange Kool-Aid. It was, if you imagine the source material as real orange juice, that felt like orange Kool-Aid.
The world should be quieter, but that doesn't sell films.
No, and that whole quietness. And my only note, and it was actually written during the closing credits, I was trying to think what this made me feel. And it made me feel like Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets had a baby with Ready Player One, the movie, but with an inadequate, restricted fight arena at the end. Mm-hmm. The ending was possibly the most disappointing bit. It felt, in fact, underwhelming. During the rest of the film, it sort of knocked you in the face a number of times with, this is what the world is like. But by the time you got to what was being built up to the final battle, it felt really constricted and confined and underwhelming.
It happens in a field next to a tower.
Yeah, and yet they were inexplicably able to find refrigerators still. I think that's what the catapults were mainly flinging, was white goods. Where did they get the white? I really, really wanted to like this film, and there were certainly bits of it that looked good, that felt good, but it wasn't tight enough. It plodded in places. It felt like it wasn't just made by a committee, but groups of committees that barely met together for a consolidation meeting. And that feels harsh, saying that. It wasn't as bad as what I feared it was going to be from the small snippets of reviews that the headlines caught my eye. But it could have been so much better.
They got Chris Pratt in to do what Chris Pratt does in basically every movie that I've seen of him, which is wisecrack with a non-human character.
Yeah. And possibly The other hang-up, and I think that's where the Valerian connection sort of sprung up in my mind, was the chemistry of the actual human characters just wasn't there.
They're not terrible people in the same way that the characters in Valerian were.
No. But I felt like I should have been feeling more for all of them. Mm-hmm. And even the scene at the end where Chris Pratt's character, we should be feeling sorry for him, it still was played for comedy. Yeah. And I don't think it should have been there. And yet, for it not to be played by comedy, his whole character should have developed enough through the movie for you to care for him. And it just didn't. Because it was Star-Lord and Groot.
Rocket Raccoon, I think, might be the better comparison.
Yeah. And the connection with the whole brother-sister connection, I didn't feel it. Because they kept on wandering off in different directions that didn't allow time for... And it was a long movie, but there were just bits and pieces of it that they should have trimmed to allow for development of character.
The brother is limited to a fixed facial expression and some pre-recorded lines.
Yeah.
And hand gestures.
Yes, and hand gestures.
And occasionally a slump. But the expression isn't really there. And maybe that's the point.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not that deep.
I don't know. To rein my comparisons in a bit, I would certainly watch this again, whereas Valerian, I would really have a problem with watching it again. But watching this again, I would still recognise the fact that it just isn't tight enough. And that's coming from someone who enjoys watching original Doctor Who. So the pacing of that compared to new Doctor Who is worlds apart. But this just felt like it plodded where it didn't need to plod. It plodded where nothing was happening. There was no development of character. There was no development of storyline.
Does it maybe have the Tomorrowland road trip problem of one too many locations?
Yes, yeah. They didn't have to go out to that second spot. That was, I don't know. Anyway, it was fine. But
you cannot underscore a big emotional moment with Wonderwall. In this day and age, it does not work.
No, it certainly took people out of the moment. You could feel it in the room of aha moments. Oh, I know what it is. I'm thinking, I know what that piece of music is, and aha. And you could just feel everyone in the room having that aha moment, which took them completely out of the moment. It should have been an original. But Alan Silvestri is certainly a composer of the time, or at least the alternate timeline, of when this movie was set. Completely capable of creating emotion during that time. Why they had to throw Wonderwall at you, you're absolutely right.
It's just sort of soaked in inappropriate needle drops.
Yeah.
Not the actual songs, mind you. Someone had to cover these songs in instrumental fashion.
Yeah.
And
in isolation, they were great renditions of, because there were numerous songs throughout that weren't the originals, that had a different take to them. But yeah, take out of the moment was, I keep on saying whereas I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh, it could have been better. It really could have been better.
It's the ways that it's disappointing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the film is fine, but I'm still left empty.
Yes. That feeling of what it could have been. and what it could have been without any of the baggage of being familiar with the original material. And I don't think, and I can't say this because I'm not familiar with it, but I don't think he would necessarily be happy with how it turned out and how his world had been interpreted. I don't know. Anyway, do you have anything else you wish to throw out into the... No? All right then.
Just sad.
Yeah, it was like getting yourself ready for a decent meal, but then forgetting to put certain flavourings in. And the dessert that had been hyped up for you just was plain honeycomb ice cream. Which, for those people who like honeycomb ice cream, that niche group would have kept them happy, but for all of us who... I was going to go for vanilla, but I remembered that there are certainly fans, including myself, of vanilla ice cream, so I couldn't use that comparison.
You've served me a thin meringue.
Yeah, with not enough cream on top. Anyway, on that note, I think we'll move on.
The following segment has no title. Thank you. And we will start over on Spotify with Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
Along the lines of theatre, I take theatre class where we do choreography and script reading, drama, and some of my dances for my recital in past years have been musical theatre. My lyrical dance this year is Circle of Life, and there's some cool tricks we'll do. And last year's jazz was You Can't Stop the Beat.
Cool. I have 2 left feet. So as far as my theatrical experience is concerned, which didn't extend any further than numerous school productions that required little choreography other than some semi-dance routines in Pirates of Penzance as a policeman, I managed to avoid dance.
And over on YouTube, M.
Hi, M.
Referring to this episode's cover art, which I believe reads... hold on. No, I can bring this up. It's a reference to the title.
Yes.
I can tell you that much. And spoiler alert, I intend to continue referencing the title.
No, really? No.
Okay, sure. Second film, this title is fine. Yeah. Gotta love the old, what if we took the movie name and put a number there instead? If only they had named the next one 3 Fast and 3 Furious.
I'm glad you beat me to it, because that's where my brain was heading, and now I can't use it.
Yeah. Look, I will say, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift is a perfectly fine title. Things are going to get sillier from there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Em. And also thank you, as mentioned earlier concerning Still Under Wraps, the snippets of many, many episodes I heard mention of Em, and Em has been with us for many, 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 many episodes.
Speaking of Still Under Wraps, apologies if anyone using certain podcast catchers saw things pop up in there. For a little bit, they did have the date they were republished.
So you would have been bombarded with numbers of podcasts that would have popped up as being published, but it was the way that Spotify threw it at us. So. Guesses.
Guesses, yes, we do have an guess.
An guess.
An whole guess.
An M guess.
Which is to FST, to FRS.
Right, she uses all 8.
Yep.
Which isn't surprising considering how long the title is.
And considering that I believe I did say that it would need to be that way.
Yes, and that there would be numbers.
Now that I didn't say.
Oh, didn't you?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay, I'm putting words into Thomas's mouth.
But I would say, good assumption.
It was a very good assumption because you were correct.
Yeah.
Well done, Em.
That's what the file name was.
You certainly have earned an arbitrary point there. Well done. And if anybody wants to have a guess at what this week's file name for this week's recording is, I'm just about to show Thomas. I do apologise if you hear some microphone crackle. He's going, what on earth?
No, I'm going, why are you talking? You could just cut this out while it's crackling. Okay, I've got it.
Okay. So, Thomas knows what the file name is. I know what the file name is.
Do you know what it is?
If you think you know what the file name is, please tell us.
On Spotify, or on Twitter, or on Facebook, or under this YouTube video, or I
wherever
guess,
it's listed in the show notes. Yeah.
Wherever we advertise it.
Yes.
Just reply.
And if you have anything else you wish to tell us, like stop rambling and get on with it and finish this podcast, please let us know.
You know, or film suggestions so that we keep doing the podcast.
Yeah. All right then. Let's move on.
Pick a film for next week so we can go to bed.
And it's your turn.
It's one of those, I have seen a thing, and, oh, okay, let's do that weeks.
Okay. Which is pretty much what this was. Except that I couldn't remember what the thing was that I'd seen.
Well, this is a little older.
Uh-huh.
This film is from 2019. It stars Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones and Ruth Negga and Donald Sutherland and John Ortiz and Liv Tyler and Greg Brick and Lauren Dean and Kimberly Elise and John Finn.
Uh-huh.
It's a science fiction movie.
Right. And is the letter Z in the title?
The letter Z is in the title of a film directed by the director. It's not World War Z.
Right. Okay. Is it on the shelf?
I don't know if it's on the shelf.
Oh, okay. Right.
I've pulled it up on Netflix, but I don't. I can check if it's on the shelf.
No, that's all right. That's all right. We're well over time as it is. So.
Do you want me to just tell you?
Yes, do tell me.
Ad Astra.
Oh, okay. Good. Have you seen it?
I haven't, no.
Right. Okay.
That's a fascinating reaction.
I have seen it. Okay, Thomas, do you have a plot synopsis for Ad Astra?
That is not a synopsis, Netflix. But this one sentence is entirely self-congratulatory. The Lost City of Z director James Gray helmed this Oscar-nominated sci-fi adventure film, which premiered at the Venice Film Festival.
Right, that's what we're watching now. All right, I will allow you 10 seconds to find a better plot synopsis.
No. We'll get to it next week.
Okay. Next week, we are watching Ad Astra, and my reaction earlier may be completely not the right reaction. Maybe I was asleep when I watched it. I don't know. We'll find out next week. Ad Astra, please join us. If not, send a friend. Until then, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
You have been listening to Cellulose Free. Your hosts were Colin, who produces and edits the show, and Thomas, who makes the artwork and music. Cellulose Free is recorded in the Deranged Cat Studios in scenic Tasmania, Australia. We keep track of our extensive physical media collection through My Movies, which we highly recommend. You can find links to that, as well as other places you can find us in the show notes. Cellulose Free is a Hi Hello production.
Hello, dear listener, and hello.